Tenants are forging pay stubs and bank statements to fool landlords and rent apartments. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an update to an article I did just a short while ago about tenant application fraud. Okay, this is a big problem for landlords because tenants right now, what they're doing is they are fudging the numbers. Okay, they are creating fake pay stubs. They are lying on their applications because they want to get into your unit when they can't afford it. Okay, and when you put one of these tenants in your unit and they can't afford it, it is bound for trouble. Don't believe anything they say, okay? You have to verify all of the information they put down on their applications, and if anything seems even a little bit fishy, just pass on them. There are more than enough good tenants out there with good verifiable information. And these lies, these games you're playing, don't act like what you have is the product that's not in demand, okay? You have plenty of tenants out there to choose from, and I just don't want to see landlords getting caught up in this nonsense. So yeah, this article I have today is actually going over the whole issue, and it's also talking about these tenants specifically up in New York. And I know that this is a really bad thing up there because rent's extremely expensive and it is hard to find a place to live. Now, I'm not talking about little minor, okay, well, I made $98,000 last year, but I wrote down that I made $100,000. No, that's not a big issue. I'm talking about people who don't have jobs who claim that they do. I'm talking about people who don't have money but claim that they've got, tens of thousands of dollars. They're just straight liars. People who, will do anything to get in your place, get free rent, and then know that, hey, the place that we are in has these tough eviction rules that make it almost impossible for the landlord to get them out of there. That's what they're doing, okay? These people, they might not be professional tenants. They might be professional tenants, right? But they're trying to get something for nothing. And that's the only thing that's going to lead to you as a landlord doing is spending a lot of money on attorneys so that, they can help you with the evictions. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? Is this a big problem, okay, this tenant application fraud thing? Or have you experienced tenants lying on their rental applications before? And, what do you think can be done to help resolve the issue and hopefully make it so that it's not a problem going forward? I'm curious. You guys know my perspective, okay? I've dealt with issues. All landlords have dealt with liars, okay? So we're used to it, and I don't want to see a new landlord get caught up in this mess. And that's what the stories that I'm bringing you half the time are about. How small mom and pop landlord with one rental property gets caught up in a mess, and now they are truly suffering. And it's an awful situation to be in. So let's get into the article. This article is coming from curbed.com, and it says, "The only reason we got it was that I lied." And yeah, they talk to a tenant that openly admits that they're lying on their application. Garbage people. I can't stand people who just can't face the fact that, hey, I don't make enough money to actually live here, so maybe I should go somewhere where I can't afford. Anyway, let's read this article and see what it says. When the recruiter and his roommate applied for a Hell's Kitchen 2-bedroom last year, they knew two things. The market was outrageously competitive, and they themselves weren't the most appealing candidates. Not that they were bad ones. The recruiter, who asked for his name to be withheld, makes over $100,000 a year, and he and his roommate both had good credit. But he didn't quite make 40 times the $3,500 rent, and his bank account balance was low that week. He just paid his bills and gone on vacation. His roommate, an actor, had been working side jobs since Broadway went dark, so they made some small edits to their financial documents, changing numbers on bank statements and pay stubs to reflect what their earnings and savings had been in flusher times. Wow, so they went so far as to bring bank statements and pay stubs up there and then edit the numbers, probably using some basic computer software. This stuff is very easy to do, right? And they're like, oh, well, 5 years ago I made $100,000 a year, so therefore you should rent this to me. Listen, there's a reason why we put these income requirements on the property, because when you make less than that, there's a very high likelihood that you're not going to be able to pay the rent, okay? And we're saving ourselves time and money, and we're saving you the humiliation of not being able to pay rent and then facing eviction. And rather than going over somewhere else that you can afford, you make $100,000 a year. The guy in this article says that he makes $100,000 a year, and his roommate is essentially unemployed. Okay, he's an actor. Okay, actors don't have the same kind of steady paychecks. Maybe they do on Broadway, I don't know. But the point is, at the point where this article was written, they didn't have the money to afford the place, and they lied, and they cheated, and they committed fraud in order to get their application accepted. We just kind of fudged those numbers, he says. I didn't feel terrible editing the documents. I make over $100,000. I can afford the apartment. My roommate was a second lead on a Broadway show, then COVID happened. He has 2 other jobs and no problem making rent. In New York, where rents are high and the rental requirements extensive, it's not unusual for landlords to ask for a credit score above 700, multiple months of bank statements, letters of employment, references, and pay stubs proving renters make at least 40 times the rent, or failing that, guarantors who make at least 80 times. Renters who lack the desired credentials say they have little choice but to lie. Sometimes the subterfuge is small, like having an applicant's parents deposit a chunk of cash into her savings account to make her appear more solvent than she is, or altering the dates on financial documents to disguise the fact that a lucrative gig recently ended. Others say they fabricated everything from credit scores to income to employers. Yeah, and that's why I say, when you get these documents, you have to verify them, okay? You need to call down to that employer, make sure the person actually works there. If they had called the roommate who is an actor, right? If they had called down to Broadway, they'd be like, no, we're shut down. This guy ain't working here right now. Nobody's working here right now. We're shut down, and then they would have known, well, these people lied on their application. Okay, these people weren't telling the truth. And that would have ended it right there. But, if the landlord isn't doing the proper, verifications of the information that's provided, then, I can't say that I feel too sorry for the landlord, because you are going to have problems, okay? When I was personally managing my properties, I would call employers. I would get the phone numbers myself. I wouldn't allow them to give me the phone number, because they give me a phone number of a friend who would, oh yeah, they work for me. No. I'm going to call down that company, HR. I'm going to look up their number online and on Google, call down to their HR, and then verify that you actually work there through them, And, that's what I have to do, because this is how ridiculous it is. If I have to go, tell you to go down to the ATM and get an ATM receipt to show me your bank account number because I don't trust your statements, then I'll do it. I have to make sure that I am protecting my property and my investment and not allowing people to cheat me. Across the U.S., rental application fraud doubled in the last few years, going from around 6 to 12%, according to Daniel Berland, the CEO and co-founder of Snapped, a prop tech company that detects rental fraud by vetting the back-end data on application documents. Looking for the digital trails Photoshop and other editing software leaves behind. New York has a 6% rate of application fraud, less than the national average, but still very problematic, he said. Berland, a landlord in LA, started the company with another LA landlord in 2019 after realizing that no data-driven document fraud detection service existed. It was actually smart. The company has been growing rapidly since then, thanks in part to the eviction moratorium. Berland says Snap's research shows that people who falsified application data have much higher eviction rates than other renters. Of course, that may be in part because landlords only have reason to go back to check delinquent tenants' applications. Tenants who submit falsified documents but pay their rent are likely never caught. And really, tenants say, what's the harm if the rent gets paid on time? Well, the thing is, right? Tenants who falsify documents and pay their rent on time are in the minority when it comes to this sort of application fraud. Okay, I would guarantee that these people who are committing the application fraud are the people who, we're seeing down in eviction court, or who are paying their rent late every month, or who are begging you to hold off and not file eviction because their paycheck is coming in next week. This is where these problems come from. And we're looking at a place like New York. I don't like to look at a place like that, but look down on the lower end, okay? Look on the lower income rentals, okay? That's what I deal in personally here in Omaha and as well in Kansas City, where I also invest, right? I deal with lower income tenants. Now, when a person who is lower income, they commit this sort of application fraud, well, it does lead a lot of the times to eviction. Okay, it does lead to that. So I feel like they are, at least in this article, they are kind of more, oh, well, this isn't as big an issue, and maybe we should side with the tenants. Well, I don't side with the tenants. I think that landlords have the right to, protect their investment, to put the best candidates possible into their property, and that lying to us on your application is just wrong. I've definitely fibbed quite a few times on rental applications, says one recent college grad who used friends as professional references and told the landlord of her East Village studio that she made $100,000 a year as a freelancer in product design. She sent over the biggest pay stubs she'd received in the last 6 months, implying that they were typical. It was the perfect spot, but I wasn't the ideal candidate. I was studying at the time and didn't have much in savings, she said, but she reasoned that the salary was within the realm of possibility after graduation. She didn't have anyone who could act as a guarantor, and it wasn't like she was going to find a place that rented for less. The studio cost $1,400 a month, so she did what she had to do. So yeah, and that's what I have to live in the East Village. That's part of what bothers me so much, right? These people could easily afford to live somewhere less desirable, a little bit further out, but they want to live in these little specific spots up in New York, right? I gotta live in this little area here, how am I gonna afford the rent? Oh, this isn't right that the landlords are raising it. Like, listen, shut up, okay? Shut up. Nobody has a right to live anywhere. Nobody. And if you're lucky and you get to live there for inexpensive, then, just consider yourself lucky. If you're not and you have to live further out and a place that's more affordable, then so be it. But, I think that part of this issue here is that these people, they feel entitled to your properties, okay? They feel like they are entitled to rent your property, that you're the bad guy for not letting them have what they want or what they think they need, okay? And that's not the way it is in reality. In reality, we own the properties. They are the renters. They don't have a right to live there. They shouldn't be lying to us. And if I catch somebody lying to me on the application, I'm not going to give them time of day. They're not getting that for nothing, okay? I don't give a crap if you make close to the amount. And a lot of these issues, they could be resolved, like I said, with good tenant screening. Like this lady here, she said that no, she just picked and chose the pay stubs. Well, that wouldn't work with me, because I'd be like, well, let me see what you actually made in the last year. Where's your tax return? And if you pull out a tax return on me, a tax return document that shows that, and it doesn't look like it was edited, then I might believe it, maybe. But I'd have to call your employer. This is part of the reason why I have a lot of difficulty renting to people who are like freelancers or independent contractors or whatever, because they tend to lie like this when it comes to their income. It's very difficult for me to believe that. That's why, when I was self-managing and I had an independent contractor who, he worked in construction, and I said, listen, your income, it varies so much, depending on the time of year, whatever, right? That I need to see your tax return statement in order to verify that you're actually making this much money. Yeah, okay? That's what I had to do. But anyway, yeah, this tenant application fraud stuff, it's only getting worse, and especially now that we're talking about inflation is sky high, rents are going up across the country. You know, we're having to raise the rents because of the increased costs that we're facing, right? And so there's more and more tenants that are trying to get into our units, and they're going to be using these scams and this fraud to try to cheat us out of our money.